Welcome back to the channel, everyone. You'll have probably seen in the last video I was unwrapping this brake servo bracket from MG Mania. So in today's episode we're going to be getting this fitted to the car. So before we fit the brake servo bracket, it's worth explaining a little bit what a brake servo does. Now, I'm no expert, but what I do know is that when you put your foot on the brake, this servo here assists with the braking of the car. And what can happen with these servos is that they flex. So as you put your foot on the pedal, they move. And what the brake servo bracket tries to do is to reduce the amount of flex that you get in your brake servo. Now, what I think would be really useful in this video is to show you how much the brake servo flexes before, without the bracket being attached. And then we'll come back and do the same thing at the end to show you how much benefit you get from adding one of these brake servo brackets, as well as what it actually feels like to drive. But in order to do that, the first thing that we need to do is remove this cover here, which covers the windscreen wiper motor and linkages. With the cover now off, we'll be able to see how much the brake servo moves before we fit the brake servo brakes. So as I put my foot on the brake pedal now, you'll be able to see the brake servo moving. It's not moving a lot, but just a little bit, and you can see it's pulling away from the bracket that's holding it to the car. So now we've got the cover off and we've got access to the snorkel. What we're going to do is remove these 3 bolts along here, and these 2 bolts that are on the servo just here. Replace those, put the new bracket on, and that should secure the servo a little bit better. Some of you might have spotted as well there's some pretty thick sealant that's gone on here. I suspect a previous owner has had a go at trying to fix a water leak around the snorkel. Any of you who've got an MGTF will know that that's quite a common issue for the snorkels to leak, and you end up with a wet footwell, which I'm pretty sure that's probably what's going on here. What you do is put the spanner underneath and then the 10mm socket on top and just loosen them off. Now these 2 are quite difficult just because the actual servo gets in the way, and the brake lines also get in the way to get into these. But if you put your spanner underneath and get it wedged onto the bottom of the bolt underneath, and then do the top one like that. And then just the last one to go. And this one's a bit tricky as well. Put the spanner underneath, get that wedged on, and then undo. So the next bolts to come out are the ones that attach the servo onto its bracket. So you need a 13mm socket for this one. Now this one is a bit rusty, so I'll keep our fingers crossed that it doesn't snap. Really not a lot of space here, so definitely recommend using a smaller spanner as you've got in order to try and get these off, just because everything seems to get in the way. Then you can just undo the last bit with your fingers, just like that. So we've got the 10mm bolts out of the snorkel, 13mm bolts out of the brake servo. I've opened up the new bracket, which is here. I'm going to be removing the masking tape before we put that on the car. Interestingly, looking at the bolts that come in the kit, they send you out what look like replacement stainless steel 13mm bolts for the servo, and some Allen key bolts for the snorkel. Not quite sure why that is. Drop a comment down below if you know the reason why. The other thing that's worth noting, and we will do this as we're putting them on, once you get a business card, is the fact that they do recommend putting some copper grease on the bolts as you pop them in, so we will do that. But here's a little tip for you. I would recommend loosening off the bolt just there at the bottom of the servo bracket, because if you don't loosen that off, when you come to try and put the new brace in between the servo and the snorkel, you'll find there's not quite enough of a space. So with that bottom bolt loosened off, what you can do is tilt the servo forward slightly, and then it gives you more space to put your bracket in. The brake servo braces are now fitted, and you can see that when I put my foot on the brake, the servo itself still moves, but the amount of movement against the bracket is less, which should hopefully make the brake pedal feel a little bit less spongy. So with the brake servo brakes now fitted, it's time to get the wheel, the wiper cover and the jack all put back in the car. So there we have it, another straightforward job done to the car. We fitted that brake servo brace. Didn't really notice a massive amount of movement in that brake servo when we did that little bit of a comparison earlier, so when we get out in the car it'll be interesting to see whether it actually makes much difference in terms of the feel on the pedal. We'll try and cover that in a later video. Hopefully you enjoyed the video. If you did, please give the video a like and consider subscribing to the channel to catch more of these videos when they come out. And until next time, I'll see you soon.